All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangout. My name is John Mueller. I'm a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google, and we have a bunch of guests here. Do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, I'm Kevin from Zurich. Nice to meet you.
My name is Marcus. I'm from IRL, also Switzerland.
I'm Jason. I'm from France, as you can hear from the accent, or not.
All right. Do any of you want to introduce yourselves who are in here?
Yeah, I'm British, but I live in Poland. I'm Paul, and I work for a large medical provider. We operate in about 9 countries, so we deal a lot with medical content.
I'm Rob from the UK, and John broke my site a few years ago and won't fix it.
And he's smiling.
All right. I guess the others are kind of quiet, but you're welcome to speak up in between in any case. We have a bunch of questions that were submitted, but if any of you want to get started with a question, or any of you, feel free to jump on in.
Can I ask a very general question?
Okay.
Yeah. I saw Gary Ilias in Australia, and he was talking about images, and he was basically saying, I'm really interested in images and video now and optimizing for images and video. The 10 blue links appear to be interesting him a lot less these days than they used to. Should we be looking at images and video much more? I mean, my vision, or what I've seen, is that Google results are becoming much more multimedia. The 10 blue links are disappearing slowly. I wrote an article on Search Engine Journal about the Darwinism and all of that. I'm completely obsessed by it. Images and video appear to be something that will appear across the board, whatever the context. Is that where should we be going?
I think images are underestimated.
Yep.
So that's kind of one thing. The other big thing is, I mean, a lot of people search visually. A lot of the newer social platforms are really focused on images. Like Instagram is something which is basically just images. So there's a lot of interest from people in finding visual content. I think the main thing that at the moment, when it comes to focusing on images, I recommend not just focusing on images as a technical thing. Like, I have 100 images, I need to optimize them and get them into image search, but rather thinking about the user journey of how someone might search visually for things that you have on your website and how you can be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So instead of just taking 100 images from your website and adding some alt tags that have keywords that match those images, think about, like, where would you present this? Or, like, how would someone search visually for your content? And how can you present your content at the right time?
Yeah, sorry, you mentioned alt tags. How much does Google take into account the context around it, the actual text around it?
We take that into account too.
An enormous amount.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something where when we show an image in image search and we think it's important for a query in image search, it's something where we want the whole landing page to kind of match.
Okay.
So we prefer not to have this random image in the corner somewhere, but really a landing page where the user knows that if they go and click on that image, they find that image on the page, and they find more information about what they were searching for. So if you're searching for, I don't know, type of luggage, then you might search visually. You might say, well, this is the type I want. You might refine it kind of visually, and then you go to that page and you want that piece of luggage there. You don't want it like somewhere in the sidebar as a small thumb.
Yeah, Stuart Rogers was talking about shopping, and you take a picture of something, I want that. Bing are apparently very good at it, sorry to say Bing, but
yeah.
Are you as good? Are you better? Are you?
I don't know.
Are you doing?
I don't know. I don't know how we would compare, but
okay.
I think it's one of those things where it's easy from a technical SEO mindset to just say, I have so many images, I will optimize these images. And it's a lot harder to think about it in terms of how people might go to your site.
Okay. And the context of the page.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's also worth considering that sometimes your content might not be something that people would search for visually. Like, I don't know if you have machine parts.
Yeah.
Maybe people wouldn't search for it visually.
Unless they love the look of machine parts.
Well, unless they're like DIYers, people who are doing it themselves, and they know it's like, I want this thing. I don't know what it's called, but it looks like this.
Oh, mind you, taking a piece out of your washing machine that you can't put back together again, taking a picture and saying, I need that piece. That's quite a reasonable search to make.
Yeah.
Jolly good.
Yeah.
Next time I fail to put my washing machine together, I'll do that.
High expectations.
John.
Yeah.
John, I would actually just back you up on this because we use images very heavily in medical, and they work very awesome for us. So if you present great images and for Google image search, then you will start getting the traffic. I think people don't look at their images enough on their websites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Cool.
Sorry, another thing you were talking about, I mean, what I was talking about, you confirmed it, the context of the text around the images. Just thinking about it, I mean, I have a client who they were keyword stuffing in the alt tag and saying, actually, the alt tag needs to describe the image. They're saying, but then I don't get my keywords. And saying, well, in fact, if you think about it, if the number of images in your article, for example, blog article, if you just read the alt tags, you should be able to describe what the page is about if you're using your images correctly or well. And if you've got an H1 or a heading with a text and an image, or a heading with a text with an image, each one of them is in a specific context within the page, and they all come together. And from what I can see, ideally, it would have these alt tags that actually describe what the page is about. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're trying to do, because with the alt attribute, you're supposed to describe the image.
Yeah.
And sometimes the description of the image isn't really what your page is about. Like you might have a picture of, I don't know, beach, but your page is about vacation homes and staying. So,
well, the example, in fact, sorry, it was they sell surveillance stuff for homes for old people, and they were saying, old couple on a sofa, not surveillance.
no.
And then they've got a security guard, and then they've got a camera. But if you say old people at home on the sofa, security guard, and camera, you've described the page. So the fact that you don't have to put old people sitting on a sofa, you putting the alt tag as security camera, security, surveillance, whatever it is. And I think, from my point of view, alt tags, that is a nice way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very glad you agree with me. So I'll shut up. Go ahead.
But I'm doing the same. So describe the image, but put some 1, 2, 3 keywords at the end of the alt text, more like this. Okay. So put the keywords, less keywords inside, but the most important thing is the description about the image, more like this, not do keyword stuffing. Something like this.
You probably don't even need to put them in the alt attribute there. If those keywords are on your page, then that's enough for us to pick that up. Yeah.
Ooh, I've got another question. Sorry.
Okay, go for it.
No. Sorry, it's about that. The word not being in the page. I think that's really, really interesting, because I had a client who did flower delivery, and we were ranking #1 for cheap flower delivery, and the word cheap was not in the page. And I'm wondering, is it because we were cheap and Google realized we were cheap? Or because it was somewhere else on the site? Because it wasn't in the page at all?
Or backlinks.
Or backlinks, thank you very much.
Yeah, I kind of point towards links or just general context that might come into play. Maybe, I don't know, reviews, depending on how that's set up. If you're linked from maybe Yelp pages and people write about you like that, like it was really inexpensive or whatever, then that might be something that we could pick up.
Yes, I mean, good. From my point of view, I was just going to Google deduced that we're cheap, and we were cheap, and we just didn't bother saying it.
I mean, I don't think, I think putting it on the page would make sense if that's actually an important part of your business model. But I don't think we would look at the prices and say, oh, this is below average, we will call it cheap.
I was overestimating. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about, it's like an old topic, but in a new perspective, talking about multiple H1. And there was this rule, like 1 H1 per document and stuff. But now in HTML5, in the specifications, you have like these sections like the head, the article, the A side, and in the specifications, each of them like contains one H1. And so how do is Google already like following the HTML5 specifications, or will I confuse the Googlebot?
I think this is something that it comes up a lot, that people like, so can I use multiple H1 headings? And I think even before HTML5, it's like you said, like whatever, use whatever you want. We have to deal with whatever's on the page. So it's not that we would run HTML validator and say, oh, it's invalid with these 2 H1s, we will demote your website. We have to make do with what's on the web. So with HTML5, it's even normal, I guess, with multiple H1 headings, and we try to make do with that. It's not really a problem.
Okay, that's good.
No. I mean, we use the headings to try to understand which blocks of text belong together and to give more context to the blocks of text on the page. So if you use H1 headings for that, or H2 headings, or H3 headings, all of that kind of works. It's not that we require you to have kind of this strict theoretical structure on those pages.
But then HTML5 blocks then come into play, and they're important, having the menu, the nav, the aside, the article, or not really?
Not really.
Oh, no. Damn, that was my favorite.
I mean,
mine too.
I mean, for semantic understanding of the page, it makes sense. But for us, we basically make do with how the websites are built, and a lot of people, they don't have this understanding of what semantically belongs together. So we recognize this I don't know, big HTML element here is a menu or is a sidebar, is something that's shared across the site, and whether or not it's called that as an with the right HTML tags is kind of irrelevant for us. We can recognize it's something that's shared across the site, so we can treat it appropriately.
You're saying shared across the site, and that means if you're consistent, it doesn't matter how rubbish your rules are. If your rules are consistently applied throughout your site, you're going to win. You're going to be
well. I don't know. I don't know about winning, but it definitely helps. Yeah. I think the important part.
So forget about HTML5 and just become consistent. Brilliant.
I think the important part is really that we can tell which parts of your page are primary content and which parts are kind of boilerplate, we call it. So things that are more secondary, so that we can really tell when someone is searching and something is within the primary content of your page, then we can really highlight your page. Rather than if we can tell it's like in the footer or somewhere on the sidebar, then maybe we don't need to rank your page that high for it because you don't see it as that important. Okay. All right. Wow. Lots of people have jumped in. Pretty cool. So let me grab a few questions that were submitted, and then we can move more towards organic discussion again as well. Let's see. Can I stay updated on Blogger because it has a date within the URL? Suppose I'm updating a page with fresh content and notifying via Search Console. You can definitely use Blogger, and you can definitely have a date in your URL. That's fine. If you update that content, then usually we can pick up the date within the content of the page as well, and just pull it out like that. So that shouldn't be any problem. You might consider using something like, I think the Pages feature in Blogger, where you don't have the date within the URL. I'm not sure if that's like still in Blogger or if I'm mixing something up, but that might be an option as well. How can I block negative keywords traffic from my website? I don't want my website to appear for some problems. Is there a way to solve that? No, not really. I think if you don't want your website to rank for certain keywords, then obviously maybe just not put those keywords on those pages. But otherwise, there's no real trick to kind of block keywords from ranking for your pages. And most people usually have the other problem anyway, that they want to rank for things, not that they don't want to rank for things. In the categories of an e-commerce site where there are different products listed, is it possible to include the aggregate rating? Or is that only for products of the same brand? So the aggregate rating structured data should be only for the same type of product. So it shouldn't be across different products. So if you have a category listing page, you shouldn't use aggregate rating for that. Aggregate rating is really if you have one product and there are multiple reviews of that product, then you can create an aggregate rating of that. Oh my gosh, someone is asking about subdomains or subdirectories. It's been discussed how subdomains are sometimes treated as part of the main domain, sometimes not. My question is whether the same consideration may, in some cases, also apply to brand name domains with different top-level domains. We have our site in 9 different languages in the same Search Console account with the main domain. Only difference is top-level domain. Question goes on a little bit, but essentially these are different domains. So that's not really something that we would tie together and say it's one site. What you might see in some of these cases is that we pull these different domains together in the site links. When you search for your brand name, for example, we might pull in from the other languages or other countries. That kind of makes sense, but it's not the same as like a subdomain or a subdirectory. OK, I don't know. Are there any questions from you all in between?
Yeah, I have a quick question regarding the indexing. We'd recently acquired a domain, bloom.com, and it had been redirecting to bloomcircle.com. The issue that we're running into is that Google's indexed 4,000 bloomcircle.com URLs as bloom.com URLs, and we're a little apprehensive to get started on our work because the content we're looking to put on the site is family related as opposed to beauty and wellness related. So what we've done is we've removed pages from Webmaster Tools as well as 410ing the pages. From what I understand, it could take months for all the URLs to de-index, but I was wondering if there's any way to expedite that timeline and any recommendations you'd have.
OK, so you're redirecting or you just have a new domain?
We have a domain, and that domain previously was redirecting to another domain.
OK. Yeah, so in cases like that where it's really content that you don't want to have indexed anymore, I would just use the URL removal tools. And the URL removal tools are limited, I think, to 90 or 180 days, but you can just renew that after that. And that gives you a little bit more time to kind of fix things within your website. So to 410 those pages so that they drop out completely. The URL removal tool basically just hides them in the search results. So if your primary interest is really to make sure that if someone searches for your domain, they just find the content that you want them to find, then that would work.
Okay, and the timeline for all those URLs to get de-indexed, would it still be like a multiple months timeline, or would it be shorter than that using the URL removal tool?
So the URL removal tool is basically instant. It's something on the order of like a half a day. So that makes it really quick. And the reprocessing of the old URLs is something that depends on the URL. It can take multiple months to be reprocessed and drop out completely. But with the removal tool, you have those 90 days, and then you can redo that a couple of times. So basically, you can kind of hide them until they're actually reprocessed.
OK, thank you.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Hi. We have a slight problem in India. So we have around 15 IVF clinics in India, and they've actually started ranking for pornographic terms. So this is quite new, and I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to stop this. We've only noticed it in the last month that this has started to happen.
OK. I don't know. It's hard to say where that might be coming from. My guess initially is that maybe there are weird links to those sites.
Yeah, that was my thought of maybe from our Indian colleagues have done something previously that might have made this occur. So, but yeah, the site's probably about 3 years old, and we've only just seen it in the last month, this kind of trend appearing. So
I mean, there are a few things that kind of come together. On the one hand, if it's due to links, you can use the disavow tool to kind of get those links dropped out.
yeah,
The other thing is that I suspect the actual users of your site wouldn't be using those terms anyway. So it's something that
yeah, of course.
theoretically
But you kind of don't want a medical brand kind of associated with pornography terms. So
yeah. I think it's something that might be more of a theoretical problem than an actual problem. But of course, like when you search for it and you see it, or someone else searches for it and points it out, then that's still awkward. But I would mostly focus on the link side to see if there are any issues there, and then use a disavow tool to kind of have those dropped. It might also be worth double checking that there's nothing on your site that's hacked, where maybe someone is dropping things in there as well, because that's a really
we've had a look at the HTML and stuff like that to see if someone's dropping in some of these keywords in there. But obviously with IVF and fertility, then there's kind of some associated terms across those other searches that we don't want to be associated with. So yeah, it's kind of just any ideas, but we'll go and have a look at the backlinks, which is one of the things that we thought might be the case as well.
Okay, now, yeah, that's always kind of awkward.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Yeah, I have similar questions to last questions asked by Belitila. Like I have one website from India, and the website is e-commerce, and earlier we were ranking for like generic terms, but now we are ranking for generic terms plus adult keywords. So like we are ranking for adult keywords in last 1 month, like adult keywords plus or generic keywords. So it is happening from last 1 month, and the website is e-commerce. Earlier there was not such problem, but now we are ranking for some adult keywords. So is there any way to block such kind of traffic? Because we have checked our website completely from link wise. We have audited our links in different tools and different all checked our complete webmaster, and also we have checked our HTML part of the website, like each and everything, like if some adult keywords are present on our content, but our website is completely free from adult content because we are dealing in jewelry ornaments. So there is no any adult keyword on our website, but still we are ranking for some pornographic terms or adult terms. So this is the issue we are facing from last 1 month.
Okay. It's kind
Seems
of
like
weird.
an India problem, John.
Yeah. Like these weird
Two people on
coincidences.
one call. I don't know the person there either, so it's got nothing to do with me. So
That's why I have asked similar question in Google Webmaster questions query also. Because my clients are like they are not happy because they are thinking we are not ranking on search terms, but why we are getting lots of clicks from some adult keyword. And actually they are if we are ranking for adult keywords with or generic terms, then they are giving us 100% bounce rate as well. So they are affecting our website's overall credibility, because improvement in like average of bounce rate is also improving for our website. So it is like negative for us.
Yeah. So I guess first of all, I wouldn't worry about the bounce rate with regards to SEO. That's not something that we would use.
Okay.
But maybe if you two could copy some of the URLs from your site and some of the queries that you're seeing into the chat here, then I can pull that out and share that with the team afterwards.
Sure, sure. We will send you, like we can show you the search terms we are ranking for, and we can also send our website URL as well.
Yeah, maybe just drop them here in the chat, and then I can pull them out after the hangout.
Sure, sure.
Cool.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Hi,
Hey,
John.
John.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hi. Hi, John.
Hi.
Yeah, John. So I have a question. So previously I had a subdomain. Okay, let's say for exams.xyz.com. So I have created a subdomain like exams.xyz.com. So we have just built a link and we have just created a site. We have just built everything as a site and we have just created backlinks also. Then what we decided is, okay, instead of subdirectory, subdomain is not that much good. Then we just moved to the subfolders. So then what we did is we just created a subfolders with a year name, like let's say 2018 exams, 2018 exams, like that.
Just to interrupt very briefly, would it be possible to get closer to the microphone? It's really hard to understand you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Better, yeah.
Yeah. Can I start from the beginning or? Yeah, sure. So previously I had one subdomain. Now I just have a subfolder. So previously I thought that a subfolder is better than the subdomain. So we just moved to the subfolder. What we did is in the subfolder we just created a web pages in a year basis, like a 2018, 2018, like that. But after we moved from subdomain to subfolder, none of the pages were ranking. Then what we decided is, again, we just created a pages in a normal way. Like let's say for exams, just exams we created. Previously we had like a exams-2018, exams-2019. Then we decided to just create exams. So let's say for www.xyz.com/exams, like that we have created. Now the problem is none of the pages are ranking properly. Previously the rankings happened for the exams.xyz.com. Even that is also not ranking actually right now. So what can be done from our side to improve the rankings actually?
Okay. So first of all, moving from a subdomain to subdirectories, that should be perfectly fine. Like you can move within your website as long as you watch out for redirects. That seems like normal thing to do. What it seems more to me is that these are just general ranking changes that are happening either on Google's side or just across the web in general. And that's probably what you're seeing there. So less something that is due just to your technical site structure, like subdirectories, subdomains, but more just where we're ranking your site differently. And that can happen for subdomains. It can happen for subdirectories as well.
So we just redirected all the subdomains to subdirectories right now. But still the backlinks what we built for subdomains, of course, it's also getting redirected. But still, I feel that none of the pages are ranking. Let's say 90% of pages are not in the first page in the SCRP results actually. So
Yeah.
even we just tried for the past couple of months and still we just face a negative impact over there. So even if you make any changes in the web page, it's just going backwards. It's not coming front actually in SCRP results. So do we have to build more backlinks for subdirectories compared to subdomains, or is there any other activity that we can do from our side?
No, you definitely don't need to build more backlinks for subdomains or subdirectories. So that's a completely normal way to build a website. So it's not something where you need to do anything special with regards to the links. Just generally the way that you're approaching it, like we should have more backlinks for subdirectories than for subdomains, makes me kind of worry that maybe you're building links in a kind of a weird way that our algorithms are picking up on. So that's one thing I'd be kind of cautious about. But in general, to me, it sounds like this is just normal ranking changes, as they can always happen. If you redirect from one URL to a different URL in subdomain or subdirectory, we forward all of those signals that we have. So it's not that something would get lost or be less valuable if you have one setup like this or setup like that.
Okay. And when it comes to the web pages, of course, when we move from subdomain to subdirectories, so we have to change the interlinks also, right? So in case if you have a old interlinks of subdomain, we have to change it to the new interlinks, right? It should not be the older one, right?
Yeah, definitely. So if you change your URL structure, you should change it consistently across everything that you have with your sitemap files, your internal linking. If you have rel canonical on these pages, all of that should match your new URL structure.
Got it. Thanks, John.
Sure.
Hi, John. How you going?
Hey,
Look, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. So we actually operate a educational publishing website, and we've recently implemented lead-in metering. So to pass the text content of our documents, they're actually behind a paywall. So we've implemented that, and we've seen a weird thing happen where the content that we have that covers pharmaceutical terms or chemistry terms are actually being flagged as having content hacked injection in the search console. And so I've gone through all of them, and they're basically, I'm certain that it's nothing to do with any content being injected, but what it seems to be is that Google's picking up certain terms in there and thinking that this is the pharma hack. So I'm not really sure what to do about this. I pressed the request review button, but is there a way that we can sort of flag that this is legitimate content without removing these particular
Yeah, so the request review button is definitely the right approach there. And sometimes we do pick up weird things as being hacked when they're actually not hacked. So I could imagine pharmaceuticals is one of those things that tends to show up on a lot of hacked sites. So maybe we're kind of associating things there. Usually with the request review, that's something that would get processed, and someone that would look at that. If you want, you can also drop some of the URLs here in the chat, and then I can double check.
Awesome. Okay, I'll drop a couple of links. Thank you. Thanks,
Sure.
guys.
All the link dropping in the chat. It's like one place where you can drop links. It doesn't give you any page rank boost, but it's useful for me, and maybe it helps your site. Who knows? Nandini, I think you had a question.
okay. Hi, we run an e-com business. So we are just planning to launch the website in different languages. So the question is whether we have to, the URL has to change if we are providing in different languages, or should just the content has to change?
Good question. So for content in different languages, we need to have it on separate URLs. So that's something where if you automatically change the language of the content and you keep the same URL, we will just index one version, and we won't be able to tell that you have multiple language versions of that content. It's something that used to be pretty popular in that sites would try to do something fancy and automatically show the right version of the content. But in practice, it means that when Googlebot crawls from the US, we only see the English content. And if you have content that's translated, it's like we never see it. We can't show it in the search results. So if you do have international content in multiple languages, make sure that there are multiple URLs associated with it. And you can use subdirectories, you can use parameters, you can use subdomains, however you want to split it up. It should just be multiple languages, like one language per URL.
Okay. And one more question also. It's about the duplicate contents. So we have two different pages, like the product listing page, which has all the brands listed, and a separate brand listing page. So the brand listing page, we have placed a rel canonical to the product listing page. But it's usually considered, the brand pages are considered as duplicate content. Is there any way that I can remove the duplicate content? Like I want it to be indexed and shown in the search results. So is there any way that I can do it?
You can block the whole page from being indexed, but it's not something where you can block a part of the page from being indexed. And usually for this type of duplicate content, we can understand that this block of text within the page is duplicated across multiple pages, and that's fine for us. It's not a sign of low quality website. It's completely normal. What happens in practice is if someone searches for something in that duplicated block of text, we'll know multiple pages on your site have that block of text, and we'll try to pick one of those pages and just show that. So it's not that we would demote your website for having this kind of duplicate content. It's just we would try to filter it out and show just one of them in the search results.
Okay, thank you.
So I could ask a question.
Sure, sure.
It's similar, it's related to the language question. Can you point out the dangers of redirecting according to IP? I.e., if somebody's in France, you redirect them systematically to the French version. If they're from the US, you redirect them to the English version. Can you set out the dangers of doing that from an SEO point of view?
Well, we would see probably a redirect to the English version if you have one, and we would drop all of the other versions then. So it's kind of
drastic.
Well, I mean, like you spend a lot of time making the different language versions, and if in the end they don't get indexed, it's kind of a shame.
And second question then is having everything in a subdirectory, for example, domain name.com/affair, domain.com/en, and never having that root indexed. Is that a problem?
That's okay.
That's okay, because I've had a problem with Search Console getting the site validated, which implies to me that Google isn't fully comfortable with it.
That might just be the verification, where if we're looking for that meta tag, then like if we can't get it on the root of the page, then we're like, oh,
there's a redirect.
We can't tell.
And the second question is, I've had a couple of clients in France who do this, and systematically they don't get the rich site links on brand searches. And as soon as we stick them on the root domain for the English version or the French version, with the other ones in subdirectories, the rich site links come back. Is that me imagining things, or is that a true problem?
It shouldn't be the case. That should.
It's happened twice, so it's not obvious.
Yeah.
Not obviously a big case study.
Okay.
But
yeah. If you can drop the links in the chat, you know.
Well, I sort of want to.
Yeah.
I'll go and write it on the screen.
Or write it on the paper.
Oh, that's very traditional idea.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's the rich search results that shouldn't be tied to the structure of the site.
Well, I kind of figured it was because Google was getting a little bit confused. I mean, it was a combination of the redirects plus the subdirectories with no root. I mean, I think not having a default version is a bit weird.
It's certainly a bit weird, but some sites do it. It kind of works.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're using hreflang, then you would specify the root as being the X default version, because that's the one that does kind of the redirect. But even without hreflang, that should just kind of work.
Okay, back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Oh my gosh, so much text in the chat. I'll copy this out and take a look afterwards. Let me see if there's anything. Well, there's still lots of things that were submitted. Let me try to go through some of these fairly quickly. I have an enterprise client whose crawl recently dropped off. Thankfully, traffic and rankings have not been impacted, but we're working to restore Google Crawl. We focused on improving page quality, reducing errors, improving page speed. Nothing has seemed to work so far. Any advice on where to focus and how to remedy Googlebot crawl issues? So I think that's a pretty complicated topic. It's kind of hard to say what exactly I would focus on there. I think there are a few things you might want to start out with, and that might be, first of all, making sure that you have access to the log files so that you know what is actually being crawled, and ideally also the log files from earlier so that you can compare what Googlebot was crawling before to what Googlebot is crawling now. And it might be the case that Googlebot is crawling a lot less, but it's still crawling the important URLs of your website. So maybe that's perfectly fine. Then from crawl rate point of view, we basically have two aspects that come into play on our side. On the one hand, how much we want to crawl from your website, and on the other hand, how much we feel we can crawl from your website. So in particular, if we think that your server is kind of slow, if it responds with errors when we crawl, then we don't want to cause more problems, so we'll kind of throttle our crawling. And similarly, if we can see that your server is fast, responding quickly, no errors, server errors showing up, then we'll try to speed things up as much as we can until we reach the limit of things that we feel like we want to crawl. So those are kind of multiple aspects that are kind of competing with each other a little bit there. But again, first I double check to make sure that it's really a problem, because it's easy to spend a lot of time on these issues and it's not really a problem. and then maybe double check the speed information from your server. For crawl, it's not so much the speed that you would see in the browser, so not page speed insights, but more the speed information in Search Console, the time that it takes to download a page. That's what we would use for crawling. And yeah, I think those are pretty much the aspects I would focus on there. Let's see. I had a domain that wasn't indexed on Bing due to it being in some kind of spam blacklist. After manual review, they lifted the ban and then started indexing. And then basically, if the domain was flagged on Bing, what's the chance it was flagged on Google? I don't know why you were flagged on Bing, so it's hard to say if that would affect Google. Usually, I mean, definitely we have different indexing systems. We have different web spam systems, so all of that should be pretty separate. So usually what happens on our side is if there's a manual action from the web spam team, you'll see that in Search Console. So if there's something that's blocking your site, you'll see that. You can respond to that. You can do the reconsideration request, and then everything is essentially back to normal. So that's mostly what I would focus on there. Oh my gosh, so many questions left, but we're kind of running low on time. Maybe I can just take questions from either you here or you here.
You didn't get a chance.
About the discovery
Go for it.
section. Does Google make difference between newspaper sites and blogs under discovery?
The discovery, so the kind of the automatic feed.
Yes.
I don't think so. So it's not limited to news sites. It can be blog sites. I've seen forum entries there as well. So,
Okay.
You know. I think it's an interesting topic because it's one of those things where you, depending on the site, you can get a lot of traffic from that, but it's really hard to optimize for it because
It's
like, there's no keyword. You don't know what people would be interested in next week, so you kind of have to understand the niche yourself and kind of think ahead.
Yeah, I was talking to a musician who was asking how, this is Google Maps and Discover, asking how he could build up his audience, and thinking about it in the middle of the night. I was thinking, yeah, you've got this YouTube channel and you get people to watch the YouTube channel. Would that then mean that he would pop up in Discover if he had a gig in that town? Or is that pushing things too far?
I don't know. I don't think that would be directly related. But I don't know if YouTube videos are shown in Discover. Maybe they are.
No, sorry, the idea is to get them tagged as being interested in this particular musician, so when he's playing a gig in their town, that he would come up on either Google Maps for you down on the bottom right-hand corner, or on Discover because Google knows that they're interested in that particular artist.
I don't know.
Damn.
It's like, I mean, a lot of these things, I could imagine, theoretically, there's some machine learning pipeline that's trying to connect all of these things. But
well, 3 o'clock in the morning, that seemed to me incredibly reasonable. So James Kirby, if you're listening, we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where theoretically we can combine a lot of things, but I find with a lot of the machine learning approaches is it gets creepy really quickly. So it's always important. I mean, I don't work on these things. So I don't know how these things are handled, but I find it really useful to be able to follow back, like, how did you come up with this suggestion? So if as a user, you can look at that and you say, well, this was due to like me having looked for this musician's name a couple of times, looking for concerts a couple of times, I didn't find anything, and now there's something here, then that kind of makes sense.
So it's more likely to be a link between the search behavior on Discover than there is between YouTube and Discover.
I don't know if you could say that.
Well,
but I imagine also it's something where the activity on YouTube wouldn't be something that we'd be able to take into account for search. Or maybe for policy reasons, maybe it's just because different silos within Google, but it's quite separate, I guess.
I mean, I'm really intrigued by Discover. You must be too. I mean, the stuff that comes up in Discover for me is not necessarily things that I've been searching for, so I'm wondering where it's getting the information.
Yeah.
It gives me Liverpool football scores, but I never search for that. I go and look at them on The Guardian.
Okay.
Or, you know, I'm...
Okay, so it kind of matches. It's not...
Oh, yeah, but totally, it's not search behavior, it's surfing behavior.
Okay.
which is doing it. But then that's on my Android phone now I think about it. Oh, sorry.
It depends.
It depends. I'm just really curious about it.
Yeah. I know some people use it quite a lot, and other people don't use it at all. Some people adjust the settings quite a bit to say like more of this, more of that. Yeah. Curious to see how that will come.
Hey John, I have a question.
Okay.
Will Google read the URL after the query parameter?
Yes. Yes. So the URL parameters, all of that, we do use that. It's something that doesn't block crawling or indexing. So if you need to use URL parameters, that's perfectly fine. If there are parts of the URL parameter that you want to have dropped, then I would use the URL parameter handling tool in Search Console, or at least make sure that you have the rel canonical set to kind of drop those parts of the parameter.
Will that tool
the query even after the query parameter, will it read it?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you mean after the query parameters?
Like I have a domain, and after that I use the query parameter so that like I can have different content over there.
Yeah. So if it's with a question mark and then some like key and value things, that's perfectly fine. If it's with a number sign, like the hash symbol, then that's something that we would drop.
Okay.
You just
then one more question. Yes, well, by adding events tracking, will it affect my site? Like in case of a page size?
What are you adding again? I missed it. Sorry.
By adding the events tracking code to the website, so will it increase my page size?
I mean, if you're adding more code to the pages, then that increases the page size. Usually, it doesn't affect the time for a browser that much if you just add some structured data, because it's something. It's not like a giant block of text. It's kind of reasonable in size, and it compresses well. So it does affect the size, but usually not so much the speed. And with regards to the tool, I suspect we'll move it over. So, I mean, that question comes up, I don't know, every day. It's like, this tool is only the old one. Like, does that mean you're abandoning it? And it doesn't mean that we're dropping things. So we try to drop all of the things that we know we don't want to move over. And the things that we have left at the moment, we're trying to find ways to move that to a new system, so that we can continue to use it.
Yeah. But do you really consider the settings I do in the tool? Yeah. Or is it just for me that...
No, we really use that. We really use that. We use that so much that sometimes the indexing team will contact us and tell us to contact websites and say like, hey, you're doing it. You're blocking things.
Okay.
That occasionally happens. So it's really easy to use that tool and to say, oh, Google should ignore this parameter, and then you don't realize that actually a big part of your website relies on that parameter, and you set it wrong. So that's kind of why we have such big warnings there as well, that you should really know what you're doing before you click around here. Okay. Let's take a break here. I'll copy all of the chat out and double check the things that were left. And let me just do that really quick before it all disappears. Thank you all for joining in. Thanks for all of your questions, comments, answers. Thank you for coming by in person.
Thank you for having
us. Great having people here.
Thank you.
And I'll set up the next batch of Hangouts, but I might set some up for next week just to try things out, to try different setups up, because apparently the Hangouts on Air is going away on the 1st of August, which is not that far away. So we need to figure something out. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.